Hello, boring dreamers. Today, we are going to learn how to eat dinner without getting executed. We are traveling back to the high courts of medieval and Renaissance Europe, where having a snack was a high-stakes diplomatic maneuver. And using the wrong spoon, or dare I say, a fork could mark you as a heretic. We are going to navigate the terrifying minefield of royal etiquette, where every napkin fold is a political statement and the person sitting next to you is probably plotting to seize your castle. You probably won't survive this honestly. You'll likely trip over your own sword before the soup even arrives. Or worse, you'll drink from the finger bowl and be banished from court forever. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know where you are watching from and what time it is. I love seeing the timestamps roll in from the future. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are standing at the massive oak doors of the Great Hall. It is the year 1450, perhaps at the court of Burgundy, or maybe in the drafty expanse of Westminster. The air is thick, a physical wall of heat hitting your face. It smells of roasting meat, hundreds of pounds of it spinning on spits nearby mixed with the sharp tang of wood smoke, the musk of wet wool, and the sweat of 500 people who believe that bathing is a dangerous medical procedure. You are hungry. Your stomach is making a noise that threatens to violate the first rule of courtly life: silence. But you cannot just walk in and grab a drumstick. You are about to engage in the high table entry ritual, a choreographed dance of dominance that makes a modern red carpet look like a casual trip to the grocery store. You smooth the velvet of your doublet. It's itchy, but it looks expensive, which is the only thing that matters. You step across the threshold. The noise is deafening. A chaotic din of voices, clattering metal, and barking dogs. Yes, there are dogs everywhere, fighting for scraps in the rushes that cover the stone floor. But as you enter, you notice a strange order within the chaos. The room is a map of power. At the far end of the hall, raised up on a wooden platform called the dais, is the high table. It is draped in white damask linen that touches the flora sign of extreme luxury in an age where fabric is wealth. Sitting there, alone or with a select few, is the king. He is physically higher than everyone else. He is illuminated by the best beeswax candles, while you, down here in the body of the hall, are squinting through the smoky haze of tallow dips. You look around for a seat. This is your first test. This is a mainstream historical fact. The job of seating guests at a royal feast belonged to the marshal of the hall. This wasn't just a host with a clipboard. He was a bouncer with a big stick. The marshal carried a heavy wooden staff of office, and he used it. His job was to know the exact rank of every single person in the room: duke, earl, baron, knight, squire, and place them in the correct geometric relationship to the king. If you, a lowly knight, tried to sit in a baron's seat, the marshal wouldn't just ask you to move. He would humiliate you. He might physically drag you down the table, or unmess you. In the worst cases, he would break your trencher, your bread plate, in front of everyone, signaling that you were socially dead. You catch the marshal's eye. He looks you up and down, assessing the quality of your silk. He points his staff toward a bench halfway down the hall. There, he seems to say, with the other nobodies. You walk toward your seat. You have to walk carefully. You cannot swing your arms too much. Vulgar. You cannot look at the ground. Subservient. You cannot look directly at the king. Presumptuous. You have to glide. You reach your bench. You don't sit down yet. Why? Because the trumpets are sounding. Blare. The conversation stops. The dogs stop barking. A procession is entering. But they aren't bringing food. They are bringing water. It is time for the ewer and basin ceremony. In the modern world, washing your hands is a hygiene routine you do in private after using the bathroom. In the royal court, washing your hands is a public spectator sport. It is a liturgy. You watch as the steward leads a train of servants toward the high table. They carry towels slung over their shoulders like stoles. They carry silver basins. And they carry the aquamanile. Here is a quirky, fringe tidbit. The aquamanile was one of the most whimsical and strange objects on the medieval table. It was a water vessel, usually cast in bronze or brass, but it wasn't shaped like a pitcher. It was shaped like a monster. You might have a lion, a griffin, a dragon, or a knight on horseback. The water was poured out of the creature's mouth or sometimes, if the craftsman had a crude sense of humor, from other anatomical spouts. Imagine the King of England solemnly washing his hands in rosewater that is streaming out of a brass lion's nostrils. It was a bit of playfulness in a room of deadly serious protocol. The king stands up. The entire hall freezes. The highest-ranking noble present, perhaps the king's brother, steps forward, holding the basin. Another noble holds the towel. The cupbearer pours the water over the king's hands. But wait, before the water touches the royal skin, the cupbearer does something odd. He pours a little bit of the water onto the towel, or perhaps onto a piece of bread, and eats it. Or he drinks a sip from the aquamanile. He is assaying the water. He is testing it for poison. You watch, fascinated. It seems paranoid, doesn't it? Who would poison the hand-washing water? Well, actually, it was a valid concern. Absorbent poisons, like wolfsbane or arsenic, mixed with oils, could theoretically be absorbed through the skin, or the king might lick his fingers later. Paranoia is the appetizer of every royal meal. The king washes. He dries his hands on the towel. The towel is then kissed by the noble, who held it and handed back to the servant. Now, the basin moves to the queen, then to the dukes. Finally, a lesser servant approaches you with a plain pitcher. No brass lions for you. You hold out your hands. The water is cold. You rub them together quickly. You are offered a coarse linen cloth. You wipe your hands. You are now clean. This brings us to a fierce scholarly debate, the civilizing process argument. In 1939, sociologist Norbert Elias published a famous theory that the history of manners, like not spitting on the floor or washing hands before eating, was the primary tool used to curb violence in Europe. He argued that by forcing knights to follow strict, delicate rules at the table, the king was taming them, turning warriors into courtiers. If you are worried about which finger to use, you are less likely to stab your neighbor. However, modern historians argue Elias was a bit of a snob. They point out that medieval hygiene was actually quite sophisticated and ritualized long before the modern era, rooted in religious ideas of purity rather than just political control. You aren't washing your hands just to be polite. You are washing them because the table is an altar and the meal is a secular communion. You finally sit down on the hard wooden bench. You look at the table in front of you. It is covered in a white cloth. You look to your left. You are sitting next to a stranger. "Good evening," you mutter. He nods, eyeing you suspiciously. You realize that you are going to be intimate with this man. You are sharing a mess. A mess is a unit of diners, usually 2 or 4 people, who share the same serving dishes and the same cup. You don't get your own plate. You don't get your own glass. You have to coordinate every bite and every sip with this stranger. If he has a cold, you have a cold. If he is a messy eater, you are going to be wearing his dinner. You glance at his hands. They look clean. Thank goodness for the aquamanile. But as you settle in, you notice something missing. There are no plates. There are no forks. There are no napkins. Yet, there is just a knife, which you brought yourself, hanging from your belt, and a spoon. And in the center of the table, dominating the landscape like a silver fortress, is a massive gleaming object. You stare at it. It is huge. It is shaped like a ship, or a tower, or an elephant carrying a castle. It is the salt, and you realize with a sinking feeling that you are sitting on the wrong side of it. You have survived the entry. You have survived the washing. But now you have to survive the social stratification of the condiment course. You are about to face the great salt divide. You are about to learn that in the medieval world, your entire worth as a human being is determined by your geographical relationship to a container of sodium chloride. You are seated. The bench is hard, the hall is noisy, and the stranger next to you is already eyeing the breadbasket with predatory intent. But your eyes are fixed on the object in the middle of the table. It is magnificent. It stands maybe 2 feet tall, crafted from gilded silver. It looks like a miniature cathedral, complete with little statuettes of saints in the niches. Or perhaps it is a nef, a silver ship on wheels, fully rigged with gold wire sails. This is the great salt, or the sailor. In the modern world, salt is the cheapest thing in the kitchen. You spill it, you toss it over your shoulder, you forget about it. In the medieval world, salt is white gold. It is the only thing that keeps meat from rotting in the winter. It is the flavor of survival. But this object isn't just a dispenser. It is a border wall. You look to your right, toward the king's dais. The great salt sits proudly in front of him, or just to his side. Then you look to your left, down the long crowded tables where the squires, the pages, and the minor clerks are sitting. You are sitting below the salt. You have probably heard the phrase. But standing here, or sitting here, you feel it sting. This is a mainstream historical fact. The placement of the salt cellar was the primary demarcation line of the feast. Guests of honor sat above the salt, between the salt and the king. They got the best food, the best wine, and the most attentive service. Guests of no importance sat below the salt. If you are below the salt, you are literally a second-class diner. You watch the servants moving around the table. They are carrying pitchers of wine. They fill the cup of the earl sitting above the salt. The wine is a rich, ruby red imported from Gascony or the Rhine. It is spiced with hippocras, cinnamon, and ginger. Then the servant comes to you. He pours from a different pitcher. Your wine is thin. It is pale. It smells faintly of vinegar. It is the third pressing. It is the communal swill. You take a sip. It makes your lips pucker. Vintage Tuesday. Your messmate grunts, wiping his mouth with his sleeve. You look enviously at the great salt. It is tantalizingly close, yet a world away. But the salt isn't just about segregation. It is also a piece of theater. Here is a quirky fringe tidbit. The nef, the ship-shaped salt cellar, wasn't just for salt. It was often the Swiss army knife of the royal table. The hull of the silver ship held the salt, yes. But the deck might lift up to reveal the king's personal napkin, which no one else was allowed to touch. The mast might be a toothpick holder. And hidden inside the cargo hold, there might be a serpent's of fossilized shark tooth or a piece of unicorn horn, narwhal tusk. Why? To detect poison in the salt. The nef was a mobile safety deposit box for the king's cutlery and antidotes, parked right in front of him so he could keep an eye on it. You watch the king reach for his salt. He uses a special spoon. He takes a pinch. You want some salt for your bland pottage. You look around. There is no shaker. There is no bowl near you. Do you dare ask for the great salt to be passed? Absolutely not. That would be like asking the priest to pass the Holy Grail, so you can use it as a coffee mug. If you are below the salt, you might get a trencher salt, a small, crude piece of stale bread with a hollow scooped out, filled with coarse, gray salt. Or you might get nothing. You are expected to eat your food as it comes. The discrimination extends to the light. Above the salt, the table is illuminated by beeswax candles, clean, bright, and sweet-smelling. Below the salt, where you are, the light comes from tallow dips made from animal fat. They smoke, they sputter, they smell like burning beef fat. You are eating in a greasy fog. This brings us to a fierce scholarly debate, the social mobility argument. Was the salt line rigid? Traditional historians portrayed the medieval hall as a fixed hierarchy. You were born below the salt, and you died below the salt. But social historians like Chris Given Wilson argue that the hall was actually a dynamic theater of ambition. The seating chart changed. If you distinguished yourself in battle, or if you became a favorite of the king, you could be moved up. The mess system allowed for fluidity. You are sitting here, eating bad bread and drinking vinegar, specifically to motivate you. The salt is a carrot. The king is dangling it in front of you, saying, "Be loyal, be useful, and maybe next Christmas you can sit near the silver ship." The first course is arriving. A blast of trumpets. A procession of servants enters, carrying heavy silver platters high above their heads. The smell of saffron and roasted pork washes over you. But before any food touches the king's lips, the music stops. The room goes silent again. A man steps forward. He is the panter, the keeper of the bread, or the butler, the keeper of the bottle. He holds a piece of bread. He holds a cup of wine. He is about to perform the assay. You lean forward. You are about to watch a man potentially die. This isn't a metaphor. The fear of poison is so real, so visceral, that every single dish must be tested before the king eats it. And the person testing it isn't a dog. It is a high-ranking nobleman. You are about to witness the poison taster's deadly assay. You are about to learn that sharing a drink in the Middle Ages was actually a forensic procedure to ensure that the arsenic was evenly distributed. The roast pheasant is steaming on the silver platter. The smell is intoxicating, a mix of gamey meat, ginger sauce, and hunger. A servant holding it is standing perfectly still, his arms trembling slightly under the weight. You reach for your knife. "Stop," your messmate hisses, grabbing your wrist. "Do you want to lose a hand?" You freeze. You forgot the golden rule. No one eats until the king eats. And the king cannot eat until the food has been cleared by the security team. You are about to witness the poison taster's deadly assay. In the modern world, we have FDA inspectors and health codes. In the medieval court, we have a guy named Steve, whose job description is human canary. This is a mainstream historical fact. The ritual of assay testing was the central pillar of royal dining service. It wasn't done in the kitchen. It was done right there in the Great Hall, at a specific side table called the credence, from the Latin credere, to trust. The food was brought to the credence table. The sewer, the head waiter, not a drain pipe, would cut a small piece of meat from the dish. He would dip a piece of bread into the sauce. Then the panter, bread keeper, or the designated taster would eat it. They would stand there for a moment, chewing solemnly, while the entire court watched to see if they grabbed their throat and turned blue. If they smiled and swallowed, the dish was given credence and carried to the king. You watch the sewer approach the king's wine cup. This is the highest stakes assay. Liquids are the easiest vector for poison. The cupbearer holds the jeweled goblet. He pours a few drops into the hollow of the cover, the lid of the cup. He drinks it. He waits. He survives. He then covers the cup again. From this moment on, no one is allowed to touch it, breathe on it, or pass it to another servant. It is a sealed biological sample. You realize that this entire dinner is a paranoid performance art piece. The king is starving, but he has to wait for his staff to snack on his dinner first. But physical tasting wasn't the only defense. They also used magic. Here is a quirky fringe tidbit. On the royal table, or hanging from the nef, you might see a strange object resembling a fossilized tooth or a spiral of ivory. This was the unicorn horn, actually a narwhal tusk, or a serpent's tongue, actually a fossilized shark tooth, Glossopetra. Medieval science believed that these objects sweated or changed color in the presence of venom. The cupbearer would often touch the unicorn horn to the rim of the cup or dip it into the wine before the assay. It was a supernatural Geiger counter. If you were a king, You trusted the guy eating the bread, but you trusted the magical narwhal tooth even more. The cupbearer nods. The wine is safe. He hands the cup to the king. The king takes a sip. Instantly, the tension in the room breaks. The signal has been given. The scratching of knives begins. But you find yourself wondering, is this actually necessary? This brings us to a fierce scholarly debate. The paranoia versus reality argument. Was assassination by poison actually common in the Middle Ages? Historians like Stephen Gunn analyze coroners' rolls and chronicles and find that successful poisonings were actually quite rare compared to, say, getting stabbed or falling off a horse. Some argue that the elaborate assay ritual was less about actual safety and more about sacral kingship, reinforcing the idea that the king's body was too precious to be risked. It was theater to remind everyone that he was special. However, other historians point to high-profile cases like the suspected poisoning of King John or the Borgias later on, and argue that the threat was real enough to justify the paranoia. If you are the one wearing the crown, you don't care about the statistics. You care about the arsenic in your soup. The sewer finally brings the platter of meat to your table. He doesn't offer you an assay. Apparently, your life is not worth the extra piece of bread. He serves a heap of stewed beef onto the table in front of you. But wait, he didn't put it on a plate. You look down. There is no ceramic disc. There is no pewter charger. There is just a square, flat, brownish slab. You poke it with your finger. It is hard. It feels like wood. It is bread. But it isn't the soft, fluffy bread you buy at the supermarket. It is a coarse, 4-day-old, whole wheat loaf that has been cut horizontally to form a literal edible plate. You are staring at your trencher. You have heard of breaking bread, but you are about to learn about eating off bread. You are about to discover that the most important piece of tableware in the Middle Ages was made of flour, water, and neglect. And the big question is, are you supposed to eat the plate when you're done? You look down at the brown square in front of you. It looks like a tile you might use to roof a cottage, but it smells faintly of yeast and wood smoke. This is your trencher. In the modern world, a plate is a passive object. It is a ceramic stage upon which the food performs. It is washable, reusable, and tasteless. In the medieval hall, your plate is an active participant in the meal. It is organic, it is absorbent, and eventually, it is biodegradable. The sewer, the server, approaches with a heavy ladle. He scoops a generous portion of Bruce, a stew made of meat, spices, and almond milk, onto your bread tile. You watch anxiously. Will it hold? If this were fresh Wonder Bread, the stew would dissolve it instantly, turning your dinner into a soggy lap catastrophe. But this is not fresh bread. This is a mainstream historical fact. The bread used for trenchers was baked specifically for structural integrity. It was made from coarse whole wheat flour, sometimes called sheet bread, and was legally required to be at least 4 days old before being used. The stale crust formed a hard, impermeable shell, while the dense crumb inside acted as a sponge. It was medieval engineering at its finest, a disposable container that absorbed the grease so you didn't have to wash it. The word trencher comes from the Old French trencher, to cut, because the loaf was sliced horizontally to create these flat, open-faced platforms. You watch the gravy seep into the bread. It changes color, darkening as it absorbs the fat and the saffron. It smells delicious. The combination of the savory meat juices and the yeast of the bread is tempting. You are starving. You haven't eaten since sunrise. You pick up your knife. You instinctively want to cut a piece of the bread plate along with the meat, making a sort of open-faced sandwich bite. Don't, your messmate whispers, seeing your intention. Only a peasant eats his timber. You freeze. You have stumbled upon the etiquette of the edible plate. Here is a quirky, fringe tidbit. While you could eat the trencher, doing so during the main course was considered a sign of gluttony or extreme poverty. It suggested you were so ravenous you couldn't control yourself. A refined courtier left the trencher intact until the very end. However, there was a specific term for someone who ate their plate, a trencherman. Today, we use it to mean a hearty eater who enjoys their food. In the 5th-10th century, it was a polite way of calling someone a human garbage disposal. If you ate the trencher, you were essentially licking the wrapper. So you leave the bread alone. You use it strictly as a landing pad. But as the meal progresses, the trencher begins to degrade. The bruise is wet, the roast pork is greasy, the bread is softening. You have to manage your plate like a dam operator. If you dig too deep with your spoon, you breach the hull. If you pile too much meat on one side, it capsizes. You are eating dinner on a sinking raft. For the king, up on the dais, things are different. He doesn't just have one trencher. He has a stack of 4, often wrapped in a napkin for extra absorption. And beneath his bread stack, he might have a silver or gold charger, a metal plate. When his top trencher gets too soggy, a servant whisks it away, and voila, fresh, dry piece of 4-day-old bread is waiting underneath. You, down here in the cheap seats, have to make your single square last for 3 courses. You nudge your trencher away from the edge of the table. You don't want a trencher slide accident. This brings us to a fierce scholarly debate, the charity versus ritual argument. What happened to all these gravy-soaked plates at the end of the meal? The traditional narrative is that they were collected in alms baskets and distributed to the poor at the castle gates. Historians often cite this as evidence of medieval charity, the rich feeding the poor. But modern economic historians are more cynical. They argue that by the time the trencher reached the beggar, it was cold, sodden with mixed sauces, and likely touched by the diner's hands and dogs. Was this genuine charity, or was it just a convenient way to dispose of waste? Some argue that the alms were actually given to the castle servants first, and only the truly inedible scraps went to the poor. You are eating on a plate that is destined to be someone else's breakfast, which adds a strange layer of moral responsibility to how much mustard you leave behind. A gravy is now threatening to overtop the levees of your crust. You quickly use your spoon to slurp up the excess liquid. The bread is holding, just barely. But now you face a logistical problem. You have a pile of meat on a piece of bread. You have a knife in your right hand. You look for a fork. There is no fork. There will never be a fork. So how do you get the steaming hot roast beef from the bread to your mouth without looking like a caveman? You look at your left hand. You look at your fingers. You are about to perform the 3-finger meat grab. You are about to learn that there is a very specific, very strict rule about which digits are allowed to touch the king's roast. You can use your thumb. You can use your index finger. You can use your middle finger. But if you use your ring finger or your pinky, you are disgusting. You are common. You wipe your hand on the tablecloth. Yes, that's allowed, even encouraged. You take a breath. You prepare to dive in. The meat is hot, the sauce is sticky, and the eyes of the marshal are on you. You stare at the pile of stewed beef resting on your disintegrating bread plate. It is glazed in a sauce of wine, cinnamon, and ginger. It looks delicious. It also looks incredibly sticky. You glance at your right hand. This is your only utensil. In the modern world, eating with your hands is reserved for burgers, pizza, and tacos. If you tried to eat a pot roast with your fingers at a dinner party, you would be asked to leave. In the medieval hall, however, your hand is the primary interface between you and your sustenance. But you cannot just dive in like a toddler smashing a birthday cake. There is a manual of arms for your fingers. You extend your hand. You curl your ring finger and your pinky finger down into your palm, tucking them away safely. You extend your thumb, index finger, and middle finger. You form the noble claw. You reach down. You pinch a chunk of meat. You lift it gracefully to your mouth. You do not slouch. You do not lower your face to the food. You bring the food to the face. This is a mainstream historical fact. The rule of using only 3 fingers was codified in etiquette books throughout the Middle Ages and Renaissance. Most famously, the Dutch humanist Erasmus wrote in 1530, in On Good Manners for Boys, that to dip all the fingers into the sauce is the mark of a peasant. The logic was partly practical and partly aesthetic. Practical, because it kept the other 2 fingers clean for other tasks, like holding the cup or offering a hand to a lady. Aesthetic, because it looked delicate. Eating with the whole hand, the fist grip, implied that you were starving and animalistic. Eating with 3 fingers implied that you were in control of your appetite. You take a bite. The sauce gets on your fingertips. It is hot. Now you have a problem. Your fingers are coated in grease. You want to lick them. It is a natural instinct. Do not lick them. Licking your fingers is a capital offense in the court of manners. It suggests you are treating your body as a cleaning instrument. So, what do you do with the grease? You look at the tablecloth. It is white. It is expensive. You wipe your fingers on it. Yes, really. In the medieval court, the tablecloth was the napkin. It was perfectly acceptable to wipe your greasy thumb on the edge of the cloth hanging in front of you. In fact, if you look closely at medieval paintings of the Last Supper or royal feasts, the tablecloths are often depicted with smudges. It was considered polite to wipe your hands on the cloth before reaching for the communal wine cup, so you didn't leave a greasy film on the silver rim for your neighbor to taste. You wipe. You grab another piece of meat. But you have to be careful about the dip. You are sharing this dish with your messmate. You cannot rummage around in the bowl looking for the best piece. That is called poking. You must take the piece that is closest to you. And under no circumstances can you take a bite, decide it's too hot, and put it back. That is social suicide. You glance at your pinky finger. It is sticking out, rigidly extended, hovering away from the mess like a pristine satellite. Here is a quirky fringe tidbit. This is the actual origin of the tea-drinking pinky stereotype. We often think of sticking the pinky out as a sign of snobbery or affectation. But in the Middle Ages, it was a practical necessity. By keeping the pinky and ring finger curled or extended away from the food, you kept them virgin. Why did you need virgin fingers? To dip into the spice dish. If the host provided a communal bowl of expensive spices, like pepper or ginger, to sprinkle on your food, you couldn't reach in with your gravy-soaked meat fingers. You used your clean, dry pinky to take a pinch. The extended pinky wasn't about looking fancy. It was about dry docking a digit for later use. You continue to eat. The rhythm is hypnotic. Pinch, lift, chew, wipe. Pinch, lift, chew, wipe. It feels surprisingly intimate. You are touching your food. You can feel the texture of the meat, the heat of the sauce, the roughness of the bread. This brings us to a fierce scholarly debate, the sensory deficit argument. Modern historians of the senses, yes, that's a thing, argue that the introduction of the fork actually numbed our eating experience. When you use a fork, there is a metal barrier between you and the food. You don't feel the temperature or the texture until it's in your mouth. Medieval people had a multi-sensory relationship with their dinner. They felt the food. Some historians argue this made them more connected to what they were consuming, more aware of the animal, the grain, the heat. Eating with your hands was a tactile pleasure that we have sterilized out of existence. You finish the meat. Your 3 fingers are stained yellow from the saffron. You wipe them vigorously on the cloth. You look at your knife. It is sharp. You used it to cut the meat, but you didn't use it to transport the meat. Why? Because putting a knife in your mouth is terrifying. But surely, there must be a better way. Surely, in a world that can build cathedrals and calculate the movement of the stars, someone has invented a tool to move a piece of beef 3 inches without getting sticky. Well, yes, they have. You look up at the dais. You see the king eating. He is using his fingers too. But you've heard rumors. You've heard that in Italy, in the corrupt courts of Venice and Florence, they use a strange little instrument, a two-pronged golden claw. You've heard of the fork, but you won't see one here. And if you pulled one out of your pocket right now, the priest standing in the corner would likely have a stroke. Because the fork isn't just a kitchen tool. It is a theological abomination. It is an insult to the design of the human body. You are about to learn why the most useful utensil in your drawer is currently banned by the church. You are about to discover that using a fork is considered an act of heresy, a sign of sexual deviancy, and a personal affront to God Almighty. You are about to explore the devil's pitchfork ban. You wipe your yellow, saffron-stained fingers on the tablecloth again. You look at the grease smear. It feels primitive. In your mind, you imagine a tool. A simple handle with 2 or 3 metal tines at the end. You could stab the meat, lift it to your mouth, and keep your hands pristine. It seems like the most obvious invention in the world. But if you were to reach into your doublet and pull out a fork right now, the reaction wouldn't be curiosity. It would be revulsion. The marshal would gasp. The ladies would faint. And the priest standing in the corner would likely start sprinkling holy water on you. You are witnessing the devil's pitchfork ban. To the medieval mind, the fork is not a utensil. It is a blasphemy. This is a mainstream historical fact. The resistance to the table fork in Europe was fierce, theological, and lasted for centuries. The most famous incident occurred in the 11th century when a Byzantine princess, Maria Argyropoulina, married the Doge of Venice. She brought a case of golden two-pronged forks with her. At the wedding feast, she refused to touch the food with her hands, using the forks instead. The Venetian clergy were horrified. St. Peter Damian later wrote a scathing condemnation, essentially saying, God in his wisdom has provided man with natural forks, his fingers. Therefore, it is an insult to him to substitute them with artificial metal ones. When the princess died of the plague shortly after, the clergy preached that it was God's just punishment for her vanity. She died because she didn't want to get her fingers sticky. You look at your own fingers. They are God's forks. To cover them with metal is to reject the body God gave you. It sounds insane to us. But think about the symbolism. What else looks like a fork? A pitchfork, the devil's trident. The iconography of hell is full of demons prodding sinners with forked instruments. To bring a miniature version of Lucifer's weapon to the dinner table and put it in your mouth, it's practically asking for possession. But it isn't just about theology. It's about masculinity. In the rough and tumble world of the medieval court, eating with a knife and fingers is manly. It requires dexterity, callousness to heat, and a certain carnivorous aggression. Using a fork is seen as fussy. It's weak. It's something they do in the decadent East or in those soft, perfume-wearing Italian city-states. Here is a quirky, fringe tidbit. When forks finally started to trickle into Northern Europe centuries later, they were initially used only for one specific food group, suckets. These were sticky. Wet sweetmeats, candied fruits, ginger in syrup, or heavy marzipan. They were so sticky that even the 3-finger grab failed. So, wealthy Tudors began carrying tiny, specialized sucket forks, often made of silver or mother of pearl, solely for dessert. It was the gateway drug to cutlery. You could use a fork for a candied orange peel, but if you used it for beef, you were mocked as a furcifer, a rascal, or literally, a fork-bearer gallows bird. You imagine yourself holding a fork. You imagine the king pointing and laughing. Look at him, the court would whisper. He is afraid of the gravy. He is too delicate for the roast. There is a famous account of Henry III of France, who tried to popularize forks. In the late 16th century, he and his favorites were ridiculed for forking their food, often dropping peas and beans down their ruffs, because they were clumsy with the new tools. The satirists had a field day, calling them hermaphrodites and claiming that their obsession with not touching the food was a sign of moral corruption. So you stick to your fingers. You embrace the grease. But this brings us to a fierce scholarly debate, the hygiene versus distancing argument. Why did we eventually switch? Why did the fork win? The traditional view is that we realized forks were cleaner, germ theory and all that. But sociologists like Norbert Elias argue that hygiene had nothing to do with it, since they didn't know about germs. He argues it was about distancing. As society became civilized, we developed a shame about our animal nature. Eating is an animal act. Tearing meat with your hands reminds us that we are predators eating a dead body. The fork creates a barrier. It turns feeding into dining. It distances the civilized human from the bloody reality of the food. We adopted the fork not because we wanted to be clean, but because we wanted to pretend we weren't animals. You look at the piece of beef on your trencher. It is dead animal. You are tearing it with your claws. You are an animal. You wipe your hand again. The napkin, if you have one, or the tablecloth is now a disaster zone. But you have cleared your plate. The trencher is soggy, but intact. The meat is gone. You lean back. You survived the first course, but the meal is far from over. The trumpets sound again. Blare, the second course is arriving. And this time, it isn't just stew. It is a roast. A massive whole roast. A swan. A peacock. A side of venison. It is carried in on a giant platter, set down before the king. But how do you serve a whole peacock to 500 people using only knives and spoons? You don't. You need a specialist. You watch a man step forward. He is dressed in fine clothes, but he has a towel wrapped around his waist and a terrifyingly sharp set of knives in his hand. He is the carver, the equire transient, and he is not just going to cut the meat. He is going to perform surgery. In the modern world, carving a turkey is a dad task done in the kitchen or clumsily at the head of the table. In the medieval court, carving is a martial art. It is a performance. It is a test of skill that ranks higher than jousting. You are about to watch a man dissect a bird in midair. You are about to learn that if you want to be a nobleman, you don't need to know how to read, but you absolutely need to know how to dismantle a crab without touching it. You are about to witness the acrobatic carving performance. The trumpets fade. The great hall goes silent. All eyes turn to the side table near the dais. A massive roast swan, feathers reattached, so it looks like it's swimming on a golden platter, has just landed. It is a culinary masterpiece. But it is also a puzzle. How do you get that bird from the platter to the king's mouth without making a mess? Enter the carver. He is not a kitchen drudge. He is a young nobleman, likely a squire. He is dressed in silk, with a pristine white towel, a port-pane wrapped around his hand or arm. He holds a knife that is sharper than a razor. He approaches the bird. He doesn't just start hacking away. He pauses. He assesses the anatomy. You are about to witness the acrobatic carving performance. In the modern world, carving is a chore. In the medieval court, it is a martial art. It is the culinary equivalent of fencing. This is a mainstream historical fact. Carving was considered one of the essential skills of a gentleman, right alongside jousting, dancing, and writing poetry. Young noblemen were sent to other households as pages to learn the mystery of rivers and forests, which included the proper way to dissect every animal in creation. There were entire textbooks dedicated to this, like the Book of Carving from 1508. If you couldn't carve a pheasant with elegance, you were considered uneducated and clumsy. You weren't marriage material. The carver raises his knife. He strikes. He doesn't saw. He slices, long, clean strokes. But here is the trick. He often does it in the air. He might impale the bird on a carving fork. Yes, carvers were allowed tools that diners weren't, or hold a leg bone with a napkin, lifting the entire bird off the platter. He holds it aloft, suspended against gravity. With his other hand, he shears off thin slices of meat that fall perfectly onto the waiting trenchers below. It is mesmerizing. It is high-stakes Jenga with a dead bird. If he drops the swan, disaster. If he splashes gravy on the king, treason. You watch, holding your breath. He works with the precision of a surgeon. He removes the wings. He removes the legs. He slices the breast. But as he works, you notice the marshal nodding approvingly. Not just at the cuts, but at the words the carver is muttering or the marshal is announcing. You see, you cannot simply cut a swan. Here is a quirky fringe tidbit. The medieval world had a hyper-specific vocabulary for carving. Every animal had its own unique verb for being dismembered. You didn't just carve them. You lifted a swan. You allayed a pheasant. You spoiled a hen. You unlaced a rabbit, coney. You dismembered a heron. You sauced a capon. You broke a deer. If the carver said, "I am going to cut the pheasant," the court would gasp. It would be like hearing someone say, "I am going to drive the airplane." It showed a fundamental lack of breeding. You allay a pheasant, obviously. The carver finishes the swan. He places the best slices, the dainties, onto the king's gold or silver platter. Then he turns to the sideboard to serve you. He approaches your mess. He holds a piece of roast beef on the tip of his knife. He offers it to you. You have to take it. With your fingers, you reach out. You perform the three-finger grab in mid-air, plucking the meat from his blade. It is a moment of trust. He is holding a lethal weapon inches from your face. You are trusting his steadiness. He is trusting you not to jerk. The meat lands on your trencher. This brings us to a fierce scholarly debate. The distribution versus dominance argument. Why was carving such a public spectacle? Traditional historians argue it was practical distribution of food in a hierarchical society required a central distributor. But anthropologists argue was about dominance over nature. The Lord, via his carver, wasn't just sharing food. He was demonstrating his power to dismantle the natural world. The animal was brought in whole, often looking alive, and then publicly unmade by the Lord's sword or knife. It was a ritualized act of violence that reaffirmed the social order. The king breaks the deer. Therefore, the king owns the forest. The carver wipes his knife on his towel. He bows. He retreats. You eat the swan. It is tough. It tastes a bit fishy. Swans eat river sludge, after all. But you eat it with reverence because it was lifted by a master. The meat course is clearing. The trenchers are getting soggy. The dogs are getting aggressive. But the meal isn't winding down. It is just shifting gears. The trumpets sound again. But this time, the music is lighter. Flutes, lutes, the doors open. And what comes in next isn't food. Or at least, it doesn't look like food. It looks like a military invasion. A castle is wheeled into the hall. It is 3 feet tall. It has towers, battlements, and a drawbridge. There are little soldiers manning the walls. There is a dragon in the moat. And the dragon is breathing fire. Real fire. You stare at it. Is it a toy? Is it a weapon? No, it is dessert. You are about to witness the sugar sculpture propaganda. You are about to learn that in the medieval court, dessert wasn't about satisfying your sweet tooth. It was about crushing your enemies with political messaging made of marzipan. You are about to see a subtlety that costs more than your castle. The music shifts. The heavy brass of the fanfare is replaced by the delicate plucking of lutes and the piping of recorders. The mood lightens. The doors swing open, and the crowd gasps. The servants are wheeling in a platform. On it sits a masterpiece of engineering and confectionery. It is a castle, perfect in every detail. The towers are white, the drawbridge is brown, and the moat is blue. There are knights on the battlements holding tiny banners. And in front of the gate, there is a dragon. a green, scaly beast with open jaws. Suddenly, a servant steps forward with a taper. He touches the dragon's mouth. Whoosh! A jet of flame shoots out of the dragon's throat. Real fire. Inside a dining hall full of dry rushes and tapestries. You are witnessing the sugar sculpture propaganda. In the menu, this is listed as a subtlety or subtlety. In the modern world, we would call it a centerpiece or a wedding cake topper. But this isn't just decoration. It is a political billboard made of sugar. You stare at the glowing beast. You realize that the dragon isn't just a random monster. It is holding a shield. And that shield bears the coat of arms of the king's enemy, perhaps the French or a rebellious duke. And the knight on the castle wall, he is holding the king's banner. The message is subtle, but clear. We are going to roast our enemies, just like we roasted that swan. This is a mainstream historical fact. The subtlety was the highlight of the medieval feast, served between courses to entertain the guests while the servants cleared the tables. They were made of sugar plate, a mixture of sugar, gum tragacanth, and rosewater that hardened like plaster, similar to modern pastelage or fondant. Sugar was incredibly expensive, an imported spice from the East, so a sculpture of this size was a display of obscene wealth. It was literally conspicuous consumption. You were showing the world that you had so much money you could build a fortress out of it and then destroy it. You watched the fire burn down. The smell of burning camphor, the fuel for the flame, mixes with the scent of the roast meat. Here's a quirky, fringe tidbit. The mechanics of these edible automatons were surprisingly advanced. Cooks worked with engineers to create subtleties that moved. There are records of pies filled with live birds that flew out when cut, the origin of 4 and 20 blackbirds, or sugar castles with fountains that pumped real wine. But the fire-breathing trick was the crowd favorite. It was achieved by soaking a piece of cotton in aqua vita, alcohol, or camphor, and placing it in the mouth of the hollow sugar beast. The fact that they didn't burn down more castles is a miracle of medieval risk management. But now, the burning question. Do you eat it? The servant wheels the castle up to the high table. The king admires it. He laughs at the burning dragon. Then, he takes his heavy spoon or the handle of his knife and smashes the dragon's head. The court cheers. The enemy is vanquished. The king picks up a shard of the broken sugar dragon. He takes a bite. He passes a piece to the queen. Then, the rest of the sculpture is dismantled. Servants carry chunks of the ruins down to the lower tables. You get a piece of a tower. You bite into it. It is rock hard. It tastes of pure, unadulterated sugar and grit. It threatens to crack your teeth. It isn't a soft sponge cake. It is sweet concrete. This brings us to a fierce scholarly debate. The edible versus ephemeral argument. Did they really eat these things? Some food historians argue that subtleties were purely visual table decorations meant to be admired and then discarded or saved for the next feast. They point to recipes that include inedible structural supports like wire, wood, and wax. However, other historians argue that the act of eating the symbol was the whole point. By eating the sugar image of the enemy, or the saint, or the castle, you were physically internalizing the power it represented. It was a form of gastronomic magic. If you didn't eat it, the ritual wasn't complete. So yes, you risk a broken molar to consume the propaganda. You suck on your sugar shard. The sweetness is intense. In a world without high fructose corn syrup, this is a dopamine hit to the brain. But the sugar rush is brief. Because the tables are being cleared, the voiders, servants with baskets, come around. They sweep the crumbs, the bones, and the trencher crusts into their baskets using a special voider knife. The cloth is shaken out. You think the meal is over. You've had the soup, the roast, and the dessert. Surely it is time for a nap? No, you have only finished the first course. The trumpets blare again. The doors open again. And this time, It isn't just one dish. It isn't just a swan. It is a tidal wave of food. Servants stream in carrying 20, 30, 40 different dishes all at once. There are pies. There are jellies. There are fritters. There are stews. There are whole fish. They don't serve them one by one. They slam them all onto the table at the same time, filling every square inch of space until the tablecloth is invisible. You are about to experience the chaos of service à la francaise. You are about to learn that the modern idea of courses, soup, then salad, then main, is a boring 19th century invention. In the medieval court, dinner is a buffet that comes to you. And if you can't reach the eel pie from where you're sitting, too bad, you starve. You stare at the wall of food. You realize you have to navigate a logistical nightmare. How do you get the venison pasty that is 3 feet away without standing up? Forbidden. Or reaching across your neighbor? Rude. You are about to enter the tactical phase of the meal. The doors of the great hall stand open, and a small army of servants marches in. They are not carrying single plates. They are carrying the culinary equivalent of a landslide. They descend upon the tables. They don't place one dish in front of you and wait for you to finish. They start unloading platters until the white linen is completely obscured. There is a venison pasty the size of a car tire. There is a pike in galantine sauce, shimmering in jelly. There is a fritter of herbs. There is a roasted heron. There is a custard. And they are all sitting there at the same time. You are experiencing the chaos of service à la francaise. In the modern world, we are used to service à la Russe, Russian service, where dishes are brought out one by one, served hot, and cleared before the next one arrives. Appetizer, then entree, then dessert. It is linear. It is logical. But in the medieval and Renaissance court, dining is spatial, not temporal. This is a mainstream historical fact. For centuries, the standard style of dining in Europe was service à la francaise. The meal was divided into 2 or 3 huge courses, but each course consisted of a massive variety of dishes placed on the table simultaneously. It was essentially a seated buffet. A first course might include 20 different dishes, ranging from soup to roast meat to sweet custard. You weren't expected to eat everything. You were expected to pick and choose from what was within your reach. It was a display of abundance designed to overwhelm the senses. You stare at the spread. It is impressive, certainly, but it presents a terrifying logistical problem. You are sitting on a bench. You are hemmed in by the fat merchant on your left and the sharp-elbowed squire on your right. You cannot stand up. You cannot walk around the table. And the delicious-looking eel pie is 4 feet away. You look at it longingly. It is golden brown. Steam is rising from the vent in the crust. But it might as well be on the moon. To get that pie, you have to engage in complex diplomacy. You have to catch the eye of the person sitting near it. You have to ask them politely, using the correct honorifics, to pass a heavy, hot, greasy dish down the line, over the heads of 3 other people, without spilling the gravy on anyone's silk doublet. Most of the time, you don't bother. You suffer in silence. You eat the fritter of herbs because it is the only thing within your grasping radius. This is the hidden reality of the royal feast, the illusion of choice. The king, sitting alone on the dais, has his own personal version of every dish placed within his reach. He can eat whatever he wants. You, down in the cheap seats, are geographically destined to eat whatever landed in front of you. If you are stuck in the boiled cabbage zone, you are eating boiled cabbage. You look at the dish directly in front of you. It is a massive rectangular pie. It is called a coffin. Here is a quirky fringe tidbit. In medieval cookery, a coffin, or coffin, wasn't a box for the dead. It was a pastry crust. But unlike modern pie crust, it wasn't necessarily meant to be eaten. It was a baking container. The dough was made of flour and water, rolled thick and baked hard to form a standing vessel. It protected the delicate meat or custard inside from the intense heat of the oven and kept it moist. When you were served a piece of pie, you often scooped the filling out and left the rock-hard coffin on your plate. Eating the crust was considered rustic, something you did only if you were very hungry or very poor. You are literally eating out of an edible Tupperware container. You scoop some venison out of the coffin onto your trencher. But as you eat, you notice a problem. The food is cold. Think about it. The kitchen is usually in a separate building to prevent fires. The food has to be cooked, plated, carried across a drafty courtyard, arranged on a sideboard, assayed for poison, and then placed on your table. By the time you stick your 3 fingers into the sauce, it is lukewarm at best. This brings us to a fierce scholarly debate, the visuals versus taste argument. Did medieval nobility care that their food was cold? Food historians like Jean-Louis Flandrin argue that the visual spectacle was far more important than the temperature or even the flavor. The feast was a pageant. The food was dressed up, gilded, colored with saffron and sandalwood, shaped into castles to look amazing. If it tasted like cold grease, that was secondary. The king was feeding his eyes. However, other historians argue that the heavy use of sauces and spices was actually a practical attempt to mask the fact that the meat was lukewarm and slightly congealed. The sauce was the thermal blanket for the food. You dip your bread into the sauce of the galantine. It is thick, reddish-brown, and intense. It hits your tongue like a physical blow. In the modern world, we think of medieval food as bland leg of mutton. We imagine gray meat and boiled turnips. We are wrong. The food you are eating is an explosion of flavor that would make a modern Michelin star chef weep. It is sour, it is sweet, it is spicy, it is perfumed. You are tasting the wealth of the Indies on a piece of cold toast. You take another bite. The sauce is sharp with vinegar, but also gritty with something else. Something expensive. Pepper, cloves, nutmeg, grains of paradise. You are about to understand why Columbus sailed the ocean blue. He wasn't looking for land. He was looking for the powder that is currently burning the roof of your mouth. You are about to experience the spice war on your tongue. You are about to learn that in the medieval court, spices weren't just flavorings. They were medicines, preservatives, and the ultimate status symbol. You are eating gold dust. You swallow the venison. The sauce lingers on your palate, a complex ghost of heat and sweetness. It isn't just seasoned. It is chemically altered. You look at the sauce boat or the hollow in your trencher with new respect. This isn't just gravy. It is liquid capital. You are experiencing the spice war on your tongue. In the modern world, spices are mundane. You have a jar of cinnamon in your cupboard that you bought 3 years ago and forgot about. In the medieval and Renaissance court, spices are the currency of power. They are the petroleum of the 15th century. This is a mainstream historical fact. The sheer volume of spices consumed by the medieval aristocracy was staggering. We aren't talking about a pinch of pepper. We are talking about pounds. A royal household might order hundreds of pounds of pepper, ginger, cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg every year. The most popular sauce, camline, which you are likely eating right now, was made by grinding cinnamon, ginger, cloves, and breadcrumbs into vinegar. It was brown, thick, and incredibly expensive. Why? Because these spices had to travel thousands of miles from the Spice Islands, Indonesia, through the Indian Ocean, up the Red Sea, across the desert on camels, and through the Venetian monopoly to get to your plate. When you eat a clove, you are eating a year of a sailor's life. You take another bite. The flavor is alien to your modern palate. It is agridulce, sour, and sweet. Medieval cooks loved to mix sugar, which was considered a spice, with vinegar, or verjuice, the juice of unripe grapes. It creates a sharp, acidic punch that cuts through the fatty richness of the meat. But as you chew, you might feel a slight grittiness. That's the powder fort, strong powder. It's a pre-mixed blend of hot spices like pepper and ginger. The cook didn't hold back. Why is it so strong? Is it to hide something? This brings us to a fierce scholarly debate. The rotting meat. Myth. You have almost certainly heard the story that medieval people used heavy spices to mask the taste of rotting meat. They didn't have refrigerators, so the meat was bad, so they covered it in curry. Food historians like Paul Friedman shout from the rooftops that this is absolute nonsense. It is a Victorian myth. Think about it. If you can afford expensive clothes and saffron, you can definitely afford fresh meat. The king has his own herds. The cattle are slaughtered on site. Why would he waste gold dust spices on a piece of rotten beef? The poor ate preserved, salted meat, but they couldn't afford spices. The rich ate fresh meat and spices. The heavy seasoning wasn't a disguise. It was a flex. It was about showing off. But there is another reason you are eating this spicy sludge. It isn't just culinary. It is medical. You are eating a prescription. Here is a quirky fringe tidbit. Medieval gastronomy was entirely based on humoral theory. The body was a balance of 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Every food had a nature hot, cold, wet, or dry. Digestion was seen as a process of cooking the food in your stomach. Beef was considered cold and dry, and difficult to digest. If you ate it plain, it might sit in your stomach and make you sick. So the cook had to add spices, which are hot and dry, to correct the meat. The sauce is literally an antidote to the cow. Fish was cold and wet, so it had to be fried or served with hot and dry wine sauces. You aren't just a diner. You are a patient balancing your internal chemistry with every bite. You feel the heat of the ginger radiating in your stomach. The cooking has begun. But the spices aren't just limited to the savory courses. They are everywhere. The wine is spiced, Hippocras. The sugar is spiced. Even the water is sometimes perfumed. You are living in a scentscape that is trying desperately to cover up the smell of the world outside. The open drains, the unwashed bodies, the muddy courtyard. The king's table is an olfactory oasis. You wipe your mouth. The vinegar sting of the cameline sauce is making you thirsty. You reach for your cup. But wait, you don't have a cup. You look around. There is no glass in front of you. There is no goblet. This is one of the strangest features of the medieval table. The buffet, the sideboard, is loaded with gold and silver cups, but they aren't on the dining table. If you want a drink, you have to ask for it. You have to signal a specific servant. He has to go to the sideboard, rinse a cup, fill it, bring it to you, wait while you drink it, and then take it away again. This is the cupbearer's ritual. And if you think the food tasting was paranoid, wait until you see the wine protocol. You signal the cupbearer. He approaches. He is young, well-dressed, and looks extremely stressed. He holds a silver goblet, but he doesn't just hand it to you. He holds it with a strange napkin grip, covering his hands so his skin doesn't touch the silver. And looking closely, you see that the cup has a lid. You are about to experience the cupbearer's solemn ritual. You are about to learn why getting a glass of Pinot Noir involves a security clearance, a towel dance, and a piece of unicorn horn dipped in the vintage. The vinegar burn of the cameline sauce is intense. The powder fort is doing its job, heating your stomach and drying out your mouth. You need a drink. In a modern restaurant, you would just reach for the water glass sitting by your plate. In the medieval hall, there are no glasses on the table. If you want hydration, you have to summon it. You catch the eye of a young man hovering near the wall. He is dressed better than you are. He is likely the son of a count, serving as a valet or cupbearer to learn humility and networking. He approaches. He does not carry a bottle. He carries nothing. Wine. You rasp. He bows and retreats to the cupboard. This is a mainstream historical fact. The word cupboard literally meant a board for cups. It was a stepped sideboard, often draped in expensive cloth, where the host displayed his entire net worth in gold and silver plate. The more steps on the cupboard, the higher your rank. A baron might have 2 steps. The king might have 5 or 6. It was a vertical showroom of wealth. The cups didn't sit on the dining table because there wasn't room, and because leaving gold unattended near drunk nights was a bad idea. You watch the cupbearer at the sideboard. He picks up a goblet. He takes a pitcher of wine and a pitcher of water. He pours the wine. Then he pours the water. He is mixing a cocktail. To drink wine neat, undiluted, was considered barbaric, something only drunkards or Russians did. A civilized person drank their wine mixed with water, usually in a ratio of 1:1 or 2:1. It wasn't just about temperance. It was about safety. The alcohol killed the bacteria in the water, and the water stretched the expensive wine. The cupbearer returns to you. He holds the goblet by the stem, or perhaps with a napkin wrapped around the base. But before he hands it to you, he performs a little move. He pours a few drops into the cover, the lid, or onto a small piece of bread he carries. He eats the sop or drinks the drops. He is clearing the vessel. You take the cup. It is heavy, it is cool. You look at the top. If you are lucky, or if you are a guest of honor, the cup has a lid. Here is a quirky, fringed tidbit. The covered cup was the ultimate status symbol. Only the king and the highest nobility were allowed to have a lid on their drink. Why? Because a lid prevents someone from dropping poison into your wine while you aren't looking. It was a security device. It became a badge of rank. If you were a lower-ranking knight, you got an uncovered cup. If you were paranoid and low-ranking, you might place a piece of bread or a cloth over your cup yourself. But if you were the king, your cup came with a locking mechanism. You lift the cup, you drink. The wine is sour, thin, and spiced. It tastes like alcoholic grape juice mixed with pond water if the water source wasn't great. But it washes away the grease. You take a long draught. This brings us to a fierce scholarly debate, the constant drunkenness argument. We often joke that medieval people were drunk 24/7 because the water was unsafe. But historians argue this is an exaggeration. Yes, they drank small beer and watered wine all day. But the ABV, alcohol by volume, was very low, perhaps 1% or 2% for small beer. You would have to drink gallons of it to get properly smashed. It was a functional hydration fluid, not a party drug. However, the feasts were different. The wine served at the high table was strong, imported, and flowed freely. So while the peasant in the field was just hydrated, the duke at the table was definitely buzzed. You finish your drink. You hold the empty cup. You cannot put it down. There is no coaster. The table is covered in debris. The cupbearer is waiting. You hand the cup back to him. He takes it. He bows. He walks away to rinse it out for the next person. You are empty-handed again. You look back at the food. A chaos of service is still ongoing. There are new dishes appearing. You see a bowl of salad, greens, lettuce, herbs. Your modern brain thinks, finally, something healthy. I should eat some fiber. Your medieval brain screams, stop. Are you trying to die? You freeze. You almost made a fatal error. You are about to learn about the great chain of being diet. You are about to discover that in the eyes of medieval science, eating a vegetable is an act of class betrayal and biological suicide. You are a noble. You should be eating things that fly, not things that grow in the dirt. You are about to explore why the king eats birds and the peasants eat turnips, and why mixing them up is considered a crime against nature. You pull your hand back from the bowl of greens as if it contains a nest of vipers. You glance around to make sure no one saw you reaching for the raw onions. In the modern world, your doctor tells you to eat the rainbow and load up on leafy greens. In the medieval court, your doctor tells you that eating raw vegetables is a fantastic way to imbalance your humors, generate melancholic wind, and degrade your social standing. You are navigating the great chain of being diet. You are about to learn that the menu isn't arranged by flavor. It is arranged by theology. This is a mainstream historical fact. Medieval philosophy viewed the universe as a strict hierarchy called the Scala Naturae, or Great Chain of Being. God was at the top, followed by angels, humans, animals, plants, and finally, rocks. This hierarchy applied to food too. The higher the food was physically found in nature, the more noble it was. Fire, air, birds that flew high, swans, herons, eagles were the most noble. They were airy and spiritual. That's why you are eating swan. Earth, air, fruit that grew on high trees, pears, apples, was acceptable, but risky. Earth, animals that walked on the ground, cows, pigs, were middle tier. Dirt, vegetables that grew in the ground, onions, garlic, turnips, carrots, were at the absolute bottom. If you are a noble who is high on the human chain, you must eat food that aligns with your status. You eat things of the air and fire. If you eat a turnip, a dirty root that burrows into the mud, you are literally depressing your spirit. You are eating peasant food. Root vegetables are for the people who dig the earth, not the people who rule it. By eating an onion, you are socially demoting yourself. You look at the salat of herbs and leeks. It is a dish for the poor. It is gross. Food not in the sense of disgusting, but in the sense of heavy and coarse. But it isn't just about snobbery. It is about safety. Here is a quirky fringe tidbit. Medieval medical texts warned extensively against the dangers of raw fruit. They believed that raw fruit caused fevers, flux, dysentery, and watery blood. There is a famous anecdote about a medieval king who was advised by his physicians never to touch a raw apple because it would putrefy in his stomach. If you wanted to eat fruit, it had to be corrected by fire. It had to be stewed, baked, or boiled until it was dead. The famous Warden pear wasn't eaten crisp. It was baked in red wine and spices until it was a brown mush. You aren't avoiding the salad because you hate vitamins. You are avoiding it because you don't want to die of a surfeit of cold humors. You push the salad bowl toward the lower end of the table. Let the squire eat the danger leaves. You stick to the noble meat, the roasted Huron, the venison. But this brings us to a fierce scholarly debate, the gout versus scurvy argument. Did this aristocratic diet actually kill them? We tend to think of Henry VIII and his gout-swollen, painful joints caused by an excess of uric acid from red meat and alcohol. Historians agree that the rich suffered disproportionately from gout, the disease of kings. However, did they get scurvy from the lack of vitamin C? Surprisingly, not as often as you'd think. Some historians argue they got enough vitamin C from the massive amounts of green herbs used in sauces, parsley, sage, mint, and from the small beer or wine, which sometimes contained trace nutrients. They weren't healthy by modern standards, but they weren't all falling apart either. They were just heavy. You feel heavy right now. You have eaten bread, beef, swan, sugar, and spice. You have drunk watered wine. Your stomach is feeling the cooking. The heat is rising. The meal is finally winding down. The servants are clearing the second course. But you cannot just stand up and leave. That would be dangerous. Your stomach is currently an open cauldron of digesting humors. If you move too fast, or if you leave the lid off, the fumes might rise to your head and cause madness. You need to seal the vessel. You need the void. The trumpets sound a soft, final note. The door is open. But instead of a huge procession, a few select servants enter carrying small, precious boxes. They are bringing the voiding course. It sounds like a bathroom break, but it isn't. It is the medieval equivalent of an after-dinner mint, but with a pharmaceutical twist. You are about to eat spiced candy to chemically weld your stomach shut. You are about to experience the stomach-closing voiding course. You are sitting at the long table, and you feel dense. You are a heavy, anchored object. You have consumed bread, beef, swan, lampreys, custard, and wine. Your stomach feels like a cauldron that is bubbling dangerously close to the brim. According to your doctor, you are in a perilous state. The cooking process inside you is generating fumes. If those fumes rise to your brain, you will suffer from rheum, headaches, or a dullness of wit. You need a lid. You need to slam the door on the feast. The trumpets sound a final, gentle call. The heavy platters of meat are carried away. The voiders sweep the last of the crumbs into their baskets. The table is bare. The cloth is lifted. Then, a servant approaches your mess. He is holding a silver box, or perhaps a gold cup. He offers it to you. Inside are small, white, pebble-like objects. They look like modern breath mints, or perhaps like confetti. You take one. You pop it into your mouth. You crunch down. Crack, an explosion of sweetness, followed immediately by the sharp medicinal burn of aniseed, coriander, or fennel. You are eating comfits. You are participating in the voiding course. This is a mainstream historical fact. The final course of a medieval banquet was known as the void, from the French vider to empty clear. It marked the clearing of the hall, but it also centered on the consumption of épices de chambre, parlor spices. These were seeds and spices anise, fennel, coriander, ginger, cardamom that had been laboriously coated in layer after layer of boiling sugar syrup until they formed a hard candy shell. This technique is the ancestor of the modern Jordan oven or the M&M. But in the 15th century, these comfits were serious medicine. Sugar was considered hot and moist, or sometimes dry, depending on the doctor, and spices were hot and dry. By dropping a handful of these into your stomach at the end of a meal, you were theoretically chemically sealing the mouth of the stomach to aid digestion and prevent those dangerous vapors from rising. You are literally putting a sugar cork in your gut. You chew the fennel comfit. It tastes like licorice. It is intense. The servant also offers you a final cup. It is hippocras. This is the liquid cement that goes with the sugar bricks. Hippocras is a highly spiced red wine, infused with cinnamon, ginger, galangal, long pepper, and grains of paradise, and sweetened with pounds of sugar. It is thick, syrupy, and potent. Here's a quirky, fringe tidbit. The name Hippocras comes from the Hippocratic sleeve, Manica hippocratis, a conical cloth filter bag used by apothecaries to strain liquids. To make this drink, the butler would pour the wine and spice mixture through the cloth sleeve multiple times to clarify it. It was a tedious process, but the result was a drink that was considered so medically powerful that it was sold by apothecaries, not just vendors. You aren't drinking a nightcap. You are drinking a medieval digestive that costs more than a peasant's house. A combination of the comfits and the hippocras is designed to generate internal heat to cook that swan you just ate. You drink the hippocras. It burns pleasantly on the way down. You feel a sense of closure. The meal is sealed, but there is a strict etiquette to the drageoir, the comfit box. If you are the king, the box is held for you by the squire of the body. You delicately pick out a few choice spices, maybe the ginger, maybe the coriander. If you are down here in the cheap seats, you might just get a handful of anise comfits dumped onto the table in front of you. Or worse, the box passes by, and you have to grab quickly before it disappears. You watch your neighbor grabbing a fistful. He is stuffing his pockets. For the road, he winks. This brings us to a fierce scholarly debate, the medicine versus gluttony argument. Did medieval diners actually believe they were taking medicine, or did they just use the medical theory as an excuse to eat candy? Historian Sidney Mintz, in Sweetness and Power, argues that sugar began as a medicine spice for the elite and slowly transformed into a foodstuff. In the Middle Ages, the line was blurred. The void was legally and socially justified as a health necessity. I must eat this sugar-coated ginger or I will die of indigestion. But clearly, people enjoyed the taste. It has the same logic used by someone today who drinks a 500-calorie smoothie because it has antioxidants. Was it health, or was it a sugar addiction subsidized by bad science? You feel the sugar rush hitting you. Combined with the wine, the heat, and the noise, you are feeling a bit lightheaded. The king stands up. Scrape. Every bench in the hall pushes back instantly. 500 people rise as one. The meal is over, but the event is not. You watch as the servants begin the final cleanup. They are gathering the debris of the feast. And there is a lot of debris. Remember those trenchers? The sodden, gravy-soaked bread plates? Remember the alms baskets sitting by the door? Remember the dogs? You are about to witness the final act of the dining cycle. You have eaten your fill. Now, you get to see what happens to the leftovers. You walk toward the door, your stomach sealed, your breath smelling of anise. You pass the heavy wooden gates. And there, waiting in the cold courtyard, is a crowd. They are the alms seekers, the poor, the beggars, the beadsmen. They are waiting for your garbage. You are about to experience the alms basket scramble. You are about to learn that in the medieval economy, trickle-down economics was literal. The poor didn't get money. They got the bread you wiped your fingers on. You stand up from the bench, your joints stiff from hours of sitting. The heat of the hall is stifling. A thick fog of roasting meat, burning wax, and 500 breathing bodies. You move toward the great oak doors, seeking the cool air of the courtyard. But the food isn't finished with its journey. You watch the servants, specifically the almoners, men swarming the tables. They aren't throwing the leftovers into a trash bin. There are no trash bins. They are scraping the broken meats into large wicker baskets. Broken meats doesn't mean rotten meat. It means broken in the sense of cut or touched. The half-eaten pasty, the wing of the heron you didn't finish. And most importantly, the trenchers. Hundreds of squares of coarse bread, now heavy, sodden, and stained brown with the juices of the feast. They are piled high in the baskets, like damp bricks. You follow the baskets. You walk out of the hall, past the screens passage, and into the courtyard. The air hits you like a slap. It is freezing. The contrast between the golden, spice-scented bubble of the hall and the blue-gray reality of the outside world is jarring. And there, gathered at the castle gate, is the other dinner party. A crowd of 50, maybe 100 people. They are huddled in rags. They are shivering. They are the alms seekers. You are witnessing the alms basket scramble. In the modern world, we donate to food banks or toss leftovers in the compost. In the medieval world, the connection between the feast and the famine is direct, physical, and immediate. The rich eat the meat. The poor eat the juice-soaked bread the meat sat on. This is a mainstream historical fact. The almoner was a high-ranking officer of the royal household, usually a cleric. His job was to collect the leftovers and distribute them to the poor. But it wasn't a free-for-all. The almoner had a staff to guard the baskets with sticks. Why? To keep the sturdy beggars, able-bodied men who could work away, and to reserve the food for the deserving poor, the widows, the orphans, and the crippled. The distribution was a daily ritual. The king wasn't just feeding them out of kindness. He was buying their prayers. The belief was that the prayers of the poor were particularly powerful because they were closer to God through suffering. You feed them bread. They send a thank you note to heaven on your behalf. You watch the almoner pointing his staff. You there, hold back. You, come forward. He hands a soggy trencher to an old woman. She takes it with both hands. She bites into it immediately. It must taste intense. It is a sponge of wine, vinegar, mustard, ginger, beef fat, and fish oil. It is a calorie bomb. But wait, is that all they get? Just the trash? Actually, no. Here is a quirky fringe tidbit. On the high table, right next to the king's salt cellar, there was often a special silver bowl called the alms dish or eleemosinaria. Before the king ate anything, he, or his carver, would take a choice piece of meat from the first cut and place it in this bowl. This wasn't a leftover. It was a tithe. It was a pristine piece of food offered to God via the poor before the king satisfied his own hunger. It was a symbolic statement. I acknowledge that all this comes from God, and I give the first fruits back. So, one lucky beggar at the gate isn't getting a soggy crust. He is getting a slice of prime roast swan that was cut for the king. It was the medieval equivalent of a golden ticket. You watch the scramble. It is chaotic. There is shoving. There is shouting. The dogs are weaving between legs, trying to snatch what falls. You feel a twinge in your stomach. Not hunger, guilt, maybe, but mostly you feel relief that you are on this side of the gate. This brings us to a fierce scholarly debate. The moral economy versus social control argument. Was this system of alms a genuine expression of Christian charity, or was it a cynical tool of social control? Historians like E.P. Thompson, coining the moral economy, argue that the poor felt they had a right to these scraps. It wasn't a gift. It was their due share of the land's bounty. If the Lord didn't give alms, the poor would riot. The feast was a redistribution mechanism. However, other historians argue it was purely about power. By making the poor wait at the gate and beg for crumbs, the Lord reinforced his status as the giver of bread. The literal meaning of Lord comes from hofweerd, loaf warden. It kept the poor dependent and visible, a living reminder of what happens if you don't follow the rules. The baskets are empty. The crowd begins to disperse, clutching their prizes. The almoner turns and walks back inside. The heavy gates creak, but they don't close. You stay in the courtyard for a moment. The cold air is clearing your head. The fumes of the wine are dissipating. You look at your clothes. You have a grease spot on your velvet doublet. Your breath smells of fennel comfits. Your hands, despite the washing, still smell faintly of saffron and roast beef. You are exhausted. Dining is hard work. It is a performance. It is a minefield. You have spent 4 hours navigating the salt line, the assay, the trenchers, and the spices. You have avoided poisoning, social humiliation, and the awkwardness of the fork ban. You want to go to bed, but you can't just flop onto a mattress. You are a noble. Even your bedtime is a ritual. You turn back toward the castle, not to the great hall, but to the private apartments. The solar, the privy chamber. You are about to undergo the final withdrawal. You are about to strip off the armor of etiquette and return to being a human being. You are about to experience the post-feast withdrawal. You are about to find out that even when the king sleeps, he isn't alone. And neither are you. You leave the cold courtyard and the hungry eyes of the alms seekers. You re-enter the castle, but you don't go back to the great hall. The hall is now a chaotic dormitory where servants are, clearing tables and setting up pallets for the lower household to sleep. You don't belong there. You climb a narrow, winding spiral staircase. The stone is cold under your hand. You push open a heavy door and enter the solar. The atmosphere changes instantly. The solar, from the Latin sol, sun, or perhaps solus, alone is the private living room of the lord and lady. It is smaller. The walls are hung with thick tapestries to stop the drafts. There is a fireplace, but it isn't roasting a whole ox. It is burning sweet-smelling apple wood. You are experiencing the post-feast withdrawal. You are finally taking off the mask. This is a mainstream historical fact. Over the course of the Middle Ages, the aristocracy slowly retreated from the Great Hall. In the 12th century, the king ate and slept in the hall with his knights. It was a communal barracks. But by the 15th century, the elite had invented privacy. They built separate apartments. They started eating in privy chambers. The Great Hall became a place for ceremonial feasts and for the servants to eat, while the real power moved upstairs. This architectural shift changed politics forever. Access to the king wasn't about being in the big room anymore. It was about having the key to the small room. You unfasten your doublet. You let out a breath you've been holding for 4 hours. A servant, a personal valet this time, not a public herald, brings you a basin of warm water. Real soap, made with olive oil and ash. You wash the grease from your face. You scrub the saffron stain from your 3 noble fingers. You sit by the fire. You are exhausted. Digestion is heavy work, but you aren't quite ready for sleep. You need one last thing. The valet hands you a cup. It isn't wine. It is warm, thick, and milky. It is a posset. Here is a quirky, fringed tidbit. The posset was the medieval equivalent of hot cocoa or ambing. It was made by curdling hot milk with ale or wine, then adding sugar and spices. The result was a separation into 2 layers, a fluffy, boozy custard on top, the grace, and a spiced liquid below. You drank the liquid through the spout of a special posset pot and ate the custard with a spoon. It was considered the ultimate sedative. It warmed the stomach, settled the humors, and knocked you out cold. You sipped the warm, curdled milk. It sounds gross to modern ears, but right now, it feels like a hug. But even here, in your private sanctuary, are you truly alone? This brings us to a fierce scholarly debate, the death of hospitality argument. Historians like Mark Girard argue that this withdrawal to the solar destroyed the social fabric of feudalism. When the Lord stopped eating in the hall, he stopped being visible to his people. He became a distant landlord rather than a ring giver. The decline of the feast was the beginning of the class divide. By seeking privacy, the nobility severed the bond of good lordship that held the medieval world together. You gained peace, but you lost touch. You finish the posset. You look at the bed. It is a 4-poster, draped in heavy green velvet curtains. You climb in. The mattress is stuffed with feathers, a luxury. The sheets are linen. You pull the curtains shut around the bed. You are in a box within a box. You are finally safe. You have survived the marshal. You have survived the salt. You have survived the poison taster. You have survived the spice. You have survived the fork ban. You lie back. The castle is quiet now, save for the distant barking of a dog in the courtyard or the call of the night watchman on the wall. You close your eyes.